Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Mike Martin Show here on AM 790 WPRV and on Facebook Live. I'm your host, Scott Cordigi. Our Mike Martin Show is brought to you in part by United Healthcare. You put care into everything that you do. United Healthcare does too. United Healthcare, health plans that care for you and your family every step of the way. See what care can do at uhc.com. Well, coming up on the Coach Martin Show tonight, we are going to talk to a pair of freshmen, Felix Kloman and Kimo Ferrari. They'll join us in our second show segment. And then later on, we'll talk with some members of the 1986 Ivy League Championship Brown men's basketball team, head coach Mike Singheiser, Ivy League Player of the Year Jim Turner, and their point guard Mike Wakus. But first things first, let's also welcome to the show from the class of 71, my color analyst for Brown basketball here on AM 790, Russ Tyler. Russ, how are you?
I'm great, Scott. It's great to be here.
Russ, always great to be with you. And let's welcome the head coach of the Bears, Mike Martin, to his show. Coach Martin, how are you tonight?
Doing great. And Scott and Russ, last week, it's only been 7 days since our last show. I think prior to that, it was like 322. So this is much better. Let's keep it running this frequently.
It is better, Mike. But let me just say this. I did another calculation. Dartmouth last year was March 7th, 2020. You're scheduled to play Bryant on November 8th of 2021. I believe that will be 611 days in between Brown basketball games for Scott and I.
That is far too long.
Far
too long of a gap.
Oh,
way too long.
Yep. Well, Coach, you put together a great lineup tonight. We're looking forward to talking to your two freshmen in the second segment. And then, of course, members of that 1986 championship team. They carry the flag right now. And I know that's something that you and your players are working toward, is trying to bring another Ivy League championship to Brown basketball.
Absolutely. We're thrilled. We're fortunate that Coach Singheiser and Jim and Mike are going to join us. It's 1986. You think about Ivy League championship banners in our gym. That's the one. And it's not just our staff and our student athletes. It's all of us. We're all working hard. We say it all the time. Our alumni, our donors, our fans, our university administration, the athletic department. We're all working hard. Our admissions office, our financial aid office. And when we win it again and we get that second Ivy League championship, we're all going to feel great about it, because for that to happen, we need everybody, and we appreciate everyone's support and all they do for us.
And Mike, that 85-86 team, they were not picked to win the Ivy League championship by the media. They weren't picked second. In fact, they were picked 8th and last. Does that tell you what the media knows about Ivy League basketball?
Well, there's two of the media on this call right now, I think, that vote on
I didn't vote that year.
I did not realize that, Russ. They were picked 8th. I knew it was. I knew it was a great, obviously, year. And Jim Turner, who will join us later, kind of came out of nowhere, but certainly had a career year and led to Player of the Year. Wow! I did not realize they were picked 8th.
Amazing.
Coach, I know nothing replaces the actual games, the competition, right? But you must be excited from two standpoints. Number one, you have all classes of Brown basketball players now on campus, right? Your freshmen, because of the pandemic, the way it was structured at Brown, trying to alleviate the crowdedness, your freshmen are finally on campus. So that's going to be a great thing for you personally. And then also, it looks like we could be headed toward, a situation where they're going to be allowing maybe small group workouts or individual workouts. And again, I know that's something that you would welcome with open arms.
Yeah, we think that's going to happen soon. We're awaiting confirmation, but it could happen as early as the end of this week. And thrilled that all classes are invited, to be here at Brown for the spring semester. I think it's a great thing just to be able to see them, and obviously it's different. We're going to have to, it's not going to be a normal semester, but we'll at least be able to get to see a lot of them. There are some young men that are not here, that are enrolled remotely or are not enrolled. And we talked about, I think, Dan Friday, he's extended for a full gap year so that we can, have him for 3 more years playing at Brown, which I think is great. Every young man's situation is different, and all of their decisions were different. And we fully support all the decisions that everyone made. So, we're going to try to, for the folks that are here, we're going to use this semester and prepare as best we can for next season. For the folks who aren't here, obviously we support that, and we're going to, in Dan's case, benefit on the back end, where he'll have 3 more years at Brown as opposed to 2 more years, and then his final year elsewhere.
And Mike, can you maybe explain to me how the NCAA transfer rules have changed since the conclusion of the season last year until now, and how that impacts Ivy League players?
So they haven't changed just yet. There's a strong likelihood that a rule will pass where student athletes will have a one-time transfer exception, Russ, where will be able to transfer one time in their 4 years and be eligible right away. If that does pass, that would impact some different Ivy League schools. For example, here at Brown, we have an 8-semester policy. So, when young men have to sit out normally and establish a year in residence, that impacts their ability to get out of here in 8 semesters, because the semesters they're enrolled full-time prior to coming at Brown count towards that 8. Obviously, we all know you can't be a graduate student and play a varsity sport in the Ivy League. That's not going to change. So it's going to be interesting, and I think it'll be interesting throughout the country, throughout the Division I landscape. How does that transfer eligibility, if it goes through, how does it impact recruiting? I know we've shared, how thrilled we are with the recruiting, that we've had here at Brown, but most importantly, the development. And I don't think, the transfer, while we'll, certainly consider transfers, and we've had some great ones here, that 4-year development is so key for us. I think your ability to grow from year to year and really get comfortable with the school and the city and, our program is so key to our success. And, I think that'll remain the case.
Coach, despite not having practice or games to deal with, I know you've been very busy doing a lot of things, and I want you to take us through some of those things. The Black Excellence Speakers Series, meeting with your staff via Zoom, meeting with your student athletes via Zoom, still recruiting, identifying talent to recruit for future student athletes that you want to bring into your program. And then the one other question I had, does this downtime during the pandemic allow you as a coach to maybe watch more college and pro basketball games where otherwise you might not be able to watch quite as much when you're in season?
Yes, Scott, I'll address this second part of your question first. I've never watched more basketball. That's not, especially not us. I mean, obviously during the season, we're constantly watching film of our practices and our upcoming opponents, but I've never been able to really watch as much as you mentioned, college basketball, NBA basketball, EuroLeague basketball. And, obviously you can't take everything from what you observe, but there's some things that, we see that, might make sense for our program and our personnel offensively and defensively. Now's the time. We have a ton of, time to examine that and review it and see how we might be able to implement it. Normally that's for the off season. Those are projects that we do in the off season. But that's been great. I've got some coaching friends that have been really generous about keeping me engaged, allowing me to watch their team's upcoming opponents or their team's practices or their games, and have asked me for any feedback on their teams. And then, we're obviously, how we support our student athletes, how we communicate with our staff and our student athletes, that never changes. It's different because we just can't see them every day. We don't see them in the gym. We can't take them to lunch. But we're trying to stay, as connected to them as possible. Again, I can't wait to get back in the gym with them, and it could happen as early as this week. But, you mentioned our Black Excellence Speaker Series, and that's something we instituted over the course of the summer, Scott and Russ, after the horrific killing of George Floyd in Minneapolis. We had a ton of conversations as a team, and we talked about, how can we do more in our small corner of the world here at Brown as the men's basketball team, with the platform we have to promote social justice, racial equity, to celebrate Black history and Black excellence, not just in our country, but within our own program. So we've had some incredible guests come speak to our team, and it's been something that we're grateful for, we're appreciative of, and we've learned a lot from.
And Mike, I think speaking to the quality of basketball in the Ivy League, there are a host of Ivy League players playing elsewhere, most of them as grad transfers, and a lot of them having a serious impact on their teams, not the least of which maybe Michael Smith, who scored like 23 a game last year at Columbia. And now when I see Michigan play, I say he's like the glue of that team, maybe. He's just one example.
He's one example. You've got Jordan Bruner, who unfortunately is hurt right now, but he's, starting at Alabama, another top 10 team in the country. Seth Towns is coming off of his injury and really making a big impact at at Ohio State, who's top 15 in the country. Bryce Aiken has really started to heat up at Seton Hall, and on and on and on. And you see that obviously next year too, because we've got a bunch of seniors this year who aren't going to be able to come back and play in our league because of the graduate student rule. And they're going to use their final year of eligibility elsewhere. So, I think we've all seen the improved quality of play throughout the league. Our program at Brown is working really hard to be the best in our league. We know that's a tall order because of the quality of play elsewhere. But, I think it's been fun to watch those guys go on and have the success they're having at that level. And it's just further proof of the development of our league.
All right, Coach Russ, we'll take a quick timeout. When we come back, we'll be joined by freshman Felix Kloman and Kimo Ferrari when the Mike Martin Show continues right after this.
You put care into everything you do. United Healthcare does too. Like connecting you to care whenever you need it. Because like you, United Healthcare knows what care can do.
The day the world stopped was the day we found where to go. From now on, we're not going to leave anything on our plates because we've learned to savor the moments that were always there, and they never tasted this good.
Welcome back to the Mike Martin Show here on AM 790 WPRV and on Facebook Live. I'm Scott Cordisci, and we are happy to be joined right now by a pair of incoming freshmen, new members to this Brown basketball team. Let's first introduce Felix Kloman, a 6'5" guard from Ipswich, Massachusetts. Felix, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Happy to be here. Nice to meet you guys.
Well, Felix, thank you for being with us. Also with us today, a 6-foot guard from San Diego, California, Kimo Ferrari. Kimo, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great. Well, thank you for being with us, guys. Felix, we'll start with you. I guess the trip to Brown wasn't a long one for you, being from Ipswich, Massachusetts, a little over an hour away from Providence. I know you played at Pingree School, also on the North Shore, not far from where you are. Tell us a little bit about how you wound up here at Brown University. What schools were recruiting you and what made Brown the right choice?
Yeah, so like you said, I went to Pingree School for my 4 years at high school. I didn't repeat, which is a popular thing to do nowadays, but I went there because my dad taught there. And my senior year, I didn't really have a lot of Division I looks. I was looking at a couple of different NESCAC schools. And then I actually started to plan for a post-grad year. I was looking at some different post-grad schools. But then in January, coach came through with the offer, and perfect scenario, obviously. So I accepted, and here I am.
And Felix, I read in your biography that you like participating in radio and podcasts. So this event this evening is right up your alley, as they say, no?
Yeah, this is perfect. I appreciate you guys for getting me jump started on this path, for sure.
Yeah, I was talking to Felix, Russ, before we started the Zoom about all the different things we're doing to try to fill the void with no athletic competition. And I told him about the podcast and other things that we're doing. So Felix, I may, ask you to maybe fill in and host it for me sometime, if that's okay.
Let me know. I'd be happy to be a content creator. Let me know.
And Felix, also, I see where you participated in the summer of 2019 in a Shot for Life challenge. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so I did that 2 years. They figured out how to run it this year during COVID. It was one of like the few basketball events that was run during COVID. But it's 16, I believe, boys and then 16 girls selected from across Massachusetts. And you're selected based on, obviously, foremost your basketball like talent or skill or shooting ability. And then also they're big on selecting people with great character because you're fundraising a baseline of $1,000 for brain cancer research at Mass General Hospital. So leading up to the event, you have 2 or 3 months to fundraise the money. And then obviously the shooting event, which is like a 2-hour-long event, which you shoot threes, mid-range shots, foul shots, every type of shot you can imagine. So that was an awesome event to be a part of. The guy who runs it, Mike, is one of the nicest guys I've ever met. And it was super cool to be a part of an event that was about a little bit more than basketball.
Good.
Kimo, unlike Felix, the trip from California to Providence is a little bit more of a lengthy one. Tell us about, how you wound up here at Brown University, who was recruiting you, and what made Brown the right choice for you.
Yeah, similar to Felix, I didn't have very many Division I looks, so my recruiting process to Brown was actually pretty late. I think I was late February, but once Coach Martin extended the offer, there was nothing to deny. I couldn't go wrong with accepting the offer. I mean, the combination of great athletics and the basketball culture that we have here was something I accepted right away, and I was very grateful to have.
And Keem, I'm going to take you right back to December 29th, 2018, I think it was, where Brown played San Diego State in Viejas Arena. And Scott and I are doing the game. We're sitting at the media table. The Bears are up 24-12, and San Diego State goes on an 8-point run. So it's 28-20, and Coach Mike Martin calls timeout. Brown comes out of that timeout and scores 30 consecutive points on San Diego State, and ultimately goes up at the half, 54-22, I think. Meanwhile, Scott and I are doing the game, and the crowd is so loud when San Diego State made that 8-point run and into the timeout that the media table is shaking. What was your experience? Because I understand you were at that game. What did you think about that game and the Brown Bears?
Yeah, it was a great game. Being from San Diego State's obviously the best school in terms of basketball in the city. So I think the year after that Brown beat them, they were top 5 in the country at one point. So I actually had to go to a basketball tournament or a basketball game of my own at halftime. So I think, as you said, it was 54-22. I was following the game closely, and after my game, the first thing I did was check how Brown did. And so I think they won by about 50. So it was all par for how they were playing in the first half, and I was glad they got the win.
Yeah.
Felix, you were a 1,000-point scorer in high school. You played at Pingree School in the NEPSAC. You were all NEPSAC and averaged 21 points, 8 rebounds, 6 assists per game your senior year. Just talk to us a little bit about that. I know, you grew up in Ipswich, and, you just felt like, as much as you would have loved to have played at your hometown high school, that playing in the NEPSAC was really the thing to do.
Yeah, Pingree definitely isn't one of the bigger NEPSAC schools, but it still provided me that opportunity to play against elite competition. Almost every game you're playing against the guy who's going to be going Division I to some type of school for basketball. So it was great to be able to compete there and play against guys night in and night out that were really high level players. So I was really, really glad to be able to get that opportunity for sure.
Yeah, and Felix, tell us about the recruiting process a little bit. Were you able to visit Brown? I think you might have been able to visit Brown. Did you see a game?
Yeah, I was able to catch the game against URI actually, which was a great game to catch because obviously Brown won. It was a packed house too. I think there's more URI fans there than actual Brown fans because I don't think students were on campus, but it was a crazy environment. So yeah.
Coach Martin, if you could describe these two young men in terms of their abilities, their strengths, the types of players that they are.
Yeah, no, we're thrilled with both Felix and Kimo, Scott and Russ. They both, first and foremost, their values are right aligned with our values, our core values as a program. And, that's one of the things that, obviously we focus on in the recruiting process. They both have great versatility. They both come from really well-coached programs. And I'll share, obviously I've known Felix's high school coach, Steve Gibbs, forever. He's run Hoop Mountain and so many camps and events in New England for so long, and my relationship with him goes way back to my time as a student at Brown. So I have great confidence, with Felix having played for Coach Gibbs. And Kimo, he played for a great coach in San Diego at Francis Parker, Jim Thome. Jim Thome was the coach at Parker when I was at a different school in the Ivy League. And the first guy we ever recruited to Philadelphia was Tyler Bernardini at Francis Parker, and he played for Coach Thome. Tyler had a great career at Penn and was so well coached. And Kimo, I'll never forget when Coach Thome first told us about him his freshman or sophomore year, just raved about his work ethic and his commitment and both these guys, we think obviously their talent is very good now, but with their commitment and their work ethic, they both have a chance to really grow and develop. And as we talk all the time, the development in our program is such a huge key.
Yeah, and Kimo, maybe you could self-evaluate for us a little bit. Are you a distributor, a scorer? How's your defensive ability?
Yeah, I say one of my main strengths is my lateral quickness. So I try to show that on the defensive side. So just trying to get under the opposition's point guard skin, trying to pick them up as much as I can, make it difficult on them. And on the offensive side, I think I would be a pass first point guard, but over the past few years, I've been able to develop my shot and my range. So I think I could stretch the defense out in that way.
Felix, I know Russ talked about one of your hobbies. Another one apparently is improv comedy. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I took the class in my senior year of high school, and it turned out to really like it. So I'm not sure where it'll take me, but I'm definitely looking for something similar at Brown. Yeah.
Who's your favorite comedian?
I like Pete Davidson a lot. Dave Chappelle too. I mean, he's a staple. So either one of those.
Kimo, how about you? What hobbies do you have outside of basketball? When you're not playing basketball, you're not taking care of the academics, what do you like to do with your free time?
Really not much. I just play a lot of basketball, but if I had some free time, it's mostly maybe playing video games with my little brother, just trying to compete. Anything competitive I like to do. Like, I gotta win. If I lose, like, we gotta run it back.
And Felix, tell us about your game as well. Do a little self-evaluation like Kimo just did. Offense and defense. What do you like to do?
I mean, my favorite player growing up was Rajon Rondo on the Celtics. So I'd much rather dish out an assist than score a bucket. But I just try to be as versatile as possible on the defensive end, guarding multiple positions, on offense, trying to handle the ball, working on my spot up shooting, all of that. So yeah, versatility, I would say.
A question for both of you, and Felix, you could take it first, and then Kimo, you can jump in. Obviously, having to learn remotely, that must have been a little bit of a challenge for you. You guys, I think, got to take one class first semester. How excited are you to finally be on campus here in Providence?
I'm super excited. It was definitely a little weird being at home for the fall while a lot of my friends were at school, but just to be a part of just the college vibe here and be on campus has been awesome. Walk around Thayer Street, see other students. So it's been great so far.
Yeah, and for both of you, Kimo first, how have you managed to stay sharp since the pandemic started mid-March last year?
Yeah, so being from San Diego, I could play basketball outside year round. And I was pretty grateful to have a basketball hoop in my backyard. So it was mostly me and my little brother just shooting outside mostly every day and going one-on-one. In addition to that, I was pretty grateful to have a gym in my garage. So every single day, more or less, I was in there trying to get stronger, bigger, faster. And that's how I've just been trying to stay sharp.
Kimo, have you had any experience with the East Coast at all, or is this your first time out East?
I've visited my sister in New York a couple of times, but this is definitely different than what I'm used to. I mean, this is the first time I've seen snow, so it's definitely some adjusting. The snow can be like aesthetically pleasing sometimes, but I'm definitely more of the warmer, like calling back home some nights and hearing my parents talk about how it's like 60 and 70 degrees right now. It's got me jealous, but I'm definitely adjusting.
Yeah, I think we all would prefer San Diego weather, to be honest with you.
No question about it. And Felix, the same question I just asked Kimo. How have you managed to stay sharp? Obviously, up in Ipswich, you got to shovel the court off in order to take jump shots certain times a year. But what did you manage to do?
One thing I got big into over quarantine was yoga and meditation. Just trying to get my mind right, like my mindset and all of that. So I was doing a lot of yoga and that over quarantine just because I was stuck inside. There's not much else to do. But yeah, I was lucky enough. One of my friends has a gym in his house, so I was able to go there and work out a little bit. But yeah, just doing everything I can to try to stay sharp.
Well, Felix, Chemo, thank you for joining us on Coach Martin's show. We can tell you that this portion of the Mike Martin Show is brought to you by the Brown University Sports Foundation. Through your donations and the work of our volunteers, the Brown Sports Foundation is committed to providing funding and support to Brown athletics that enhance the student-athlete experience. Thank you for your generosity and service to Brown athletics. We'll take a time out, and when we come back on the Mike Martin Show, we'll catch up with some alumni and some members and the coach of the 1986 Ivy League championship team. More of the Mike Martin Show, and we continue right after this.
The Learfield IMG College Directors Cup, the highly recognized mark of distinction in college athletics across all divisions, both men's and women's sports. Follow your favorite team's pursuit for excellence in this prestigious annual award through thedirectorscup.com, USA Today, or L Directors Cup on Twitter. Learfield IMG College Directors Cup, the crowning achievement in college athletics since 1993.
Hey everyone, this is Dr. Danielle. I'm here to present to you the Performance Fit series brought to you by Performance Physical Therapy. This is for anyone, if you're an athlete, you're exercising from home, or you're just returning to the gym. Even Bruno the Bear can do these types of exercises. We've got strength and conditioning, some flexibility and mobility, as well as speed and agility. So you can find all of these videos at brownrec.com or performanceptri.com. Hope you enjoy.
Welcome back to the Mike Martin Show here on AM 790 WPRV and on Facebook Live. I'm Scott Cordischi. Glad you could be with us. Our final segment of the show brought to you by the Hilton Garden Inn Providence. The Hilton Garden Inn Providence is the only waterfront hotel in the city featuring newly renovated rooms, public space, and a bar and lounge area with outdoor seating and great views of the harbor. Located at 220 India Street, Providence. Make your reservation today. Well, as we mentioned before the break, 1986 was a very memorable year for the Brown men's basketball program. The Bears captured the Ivy Championship that season. And joining us on the Mike Martin Show tonight is the head coach of that team and from the class of 62 at Brown University, Mike Singheiser. Coach, how are you?
Fine, thank you.
Well, thank you for being with us. And two of your terrific players from that team are with us as well. In fact, a couple of captains from the class of 86, Mike Wakis. Mike, how are you doing?
Very good. Thank you.
Well, Mike, thanks for being with us. And fellow co-captain from the class of 86, Jim Turner is with us. Jim, how are you?
Hey, Scott, I'm doing very well.
Well, guys, thank you all for joining us. Russ, I'm going to have you jump right in here as well, because you know what a special season that was, 1986 for the basketball program. The Bears won their only Ivy championship that season. Russ, what do you remember about the 85-86 team?
Well, you know what, Scott, they had the ability to come back. Mike's teams have the same thing. They don't give up. They're just mentally tough, and I think that's what happened with this team, with several games in particular. In fact, what I'd like to do, Scott, if I can ask Jim Turner, I'm going to try to take these questions in chronological order in terms of the games. But Jim, the Bears head down to the Palestra, 5-1. They're going to play the Penn Quakers, and it's obviously a big game. I always refer to that trip as a boulevard of broken dreams for Brown, although Brown's results have been much better the last 15 years or so. But you head into that game, Brown hasn't beaten Penn in eons, and you go 14 for 15 from the floor, set a mark, which still stands at Brown as the best single game shooting percentage ever. But my question is, was that as important as the Penn band playing the theme from Hawaii 5-0 to you?
Those are two very important factors. Both of them were very important. Now that game was huge because we were doing well, but still relatively early in the season, and that was a critical test to see how good we really were. And as a team, we answered that at the Palestra, which is a great place to play. They make it very difficult for the visiting team. Start off, the locker room is probably smaller than most closets that people have in their bedroom these days. We're all in there, and then we come out, and the crowd is against you. But we really, collectively, we had a great game that night. And as you said, it truly was, I think, decades since we had won at the Palestra. So it was a great win.
But talk about Hawaii 5-0. What happened with that?
Well, you have to stay a little bit loose. So when the band is playing the theme from Hawaii 5-0, we were in a timeout. Coach Singheiser had given us our directions, what we're going to do, kind of late there in the second half, and we still had a little bit of time to go out on the court. They're playing the Hawaii 5-0 theme song, and it's a very catchy tune. So we just started, doing the rowing motion as a team, and we went out on the court right after that.
That's great.
Coach Singheiser, when did you know you had a special team, this 85-86 bunch that won an Ivy championship? Did you know going into the season that this team had the potential to be very good?
Going into the season, no. Going into practice, once we got to practice time, we started to see some things. It was basically with Jimmy. That he had not done in previous years. His balance was so much better, and just a whole bunch of things that said, hey, we could be pretty good. How good, you don't know. But once we got going with the season, we saw we could beat people. We beat a bunch of lower Division I teams, American University, and so forth. And then we went down to Miami, and we played University of North Carolina in the first round of the Miami tournament. And they had they started 5 high school All-Americans, McDonald's All-Americans, and 2 or 3 came off the bench. So we basically said, our approach was, they had 4-minute intervals, then a TV timeout, and they asked us, so we said, let's play them a 4-minute game. We don't have to tell them that. If we beat them the first 4 minutes, it's over. We come over, pick up our bags, and we leave. And I think we were up 14-8 after 4 minutes, and guys are picking up their stuff and getting ready to leave. And obviously that was not the case. We played them through the first half and played them pretty well. I think we were down maybe 15-16 at the end of the half. In the second half, I wanted to make sure everybody got a chance to play. And, their second team high school All-Americans were playing against our second team all mathletes. And they beat us by 50, which was a foreboding.
To hear you describe their lineup, 5 McDonald's All-Americans, it reminds me of a Pete Gillen line when Pete Gillen coached Providence College and they were playing Duke. And he said the same thing. He said, they start 5 McDonald's All-Americans. He said, the kids I recruit don't even have McDonald's in their hometown.
Yeah. But once we got through there, we had beaten Miami in the first round of the tournament. They specifically set themselves up against us because they wanted to play North Carolina in the final. And the game was going to be televised. If you're basketball-wise or historical basketball-wise, Rick Barry graduated from Miami in like 1965 or something like that, and they cut out basketball. They eliminated basketball. This was the first year, 1985-86, that they brought basketball back, and this was going to be their their coming out party. They were going to play North Carolina on regional television and so forth. It kind of killed it that we beat them, which was nice. And after that, we went on a pretty good run. We won probably about 5 out of 6 or something like that. And we're playing really well. It was a really interesting team. I talk about it in terms of If you look at today's game where everybody plays outside, our starting five was Michael, a point guard in high school, Dan Ray, a point guard in high school, Patrick Lynch, whose brother was his coach and made him play point guard in high school, and Todd Murray, who ended up playing a lot of point guard at, where was he, Darien? I forget where he was, in Connecticut. And Jimmy, who obviously was a very good passer, who loved to pass it, you throw it in, get it back out. So we had 5 guys who knew how to pass the ball. And that is unusual now. It was certainly unusual then. So I think that's what helped us most offensively. And defensively, we were not very, we weren't a go out and get them, but we were very solid in terms of playing position and so forth. And Jim protected the basket very well. And with Todd Murray and, rebounding with him, we had 2 very good rebounders. So that made us pretty good.
And yeah, Coach Mike Singnizer, as the year goes on, you beat Penn, you lose to Princeton, and you come back to Marvel Gym to play Cornell on a Friday night. There's a snowstorm at Marvel, and the most bizarre finish that I've ever seen. Cornell gets out of the Marvel Gym with a victory, and it could have been a demoralizing victory, but you guys came back and beat Columbia the next night. What about your team enabled them to respond like that?
Well, it was unbelievable. Couldn't wrap your hands around how you'd have to write 3 or 4 scripts even to get to the point where you could write that ending. And it happened. And we came back the next night and we drubbed Columbia. I think it was 98-96.
Well, mental toughness, resiliency to your team to be able to do that. Just forget about that Friday night, unbelievable, crazy finish. Come back and win the next night.
Yeah, and that was so significant because Cornell, I think, had 1 loss at the time also. Might have had 2 at the time. But
Mike Wakens, you hear Coach talk about what a good passing team it was. There was none better than you. I mean, #1 all time in assists at Brown. You certainly knew how to dish it. I want to ask you a question about your freshman year. You had 10 steals in a game against Dartmouth. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think it is. But the motivation behind that was based on recruiting. And I love Tim Cohane and Roger Dunphy, who were the coaches back then. But I got into all the schools I applied to except for Dartmouth, and I took that personally, and I punished them every time I played them. Every time. I took it personally. Look it up. I took it personally. So yeah, I think that's true. I do.
And Mike, to continue with that same theme about Dartmouth. So you guys go into the final weekend of the season. You need to get both wins. You've got the Northern New England trip, Harvard on Friday and Dartmouth on Saturday. Can you talk about that weekend, and especially after the Dartmouth game is over, what your locker room is like when Brown finds out that they won the Ivy League championship after Princeton beat Cornell?
What I remember the most is that, we had a win on Saturday at Dartmouth. And I remember very clearly, Mike designed the game plan, and we broke the huddle, and then we got together right before the tip off. And the game plan was sort of to pick them up at 3/4 or half. We looked at each other and said, it's over. We went 5 full court, line to line, and we blew the doors off in that game. We won by like 35. We were not going to sit back and let this opportunity pass. So but we had to have somebody else lose. I can't remember who it was Cornell to win outright. So we took care of our business. We knew what we had to do, and Coach, no disrespect, but that wasn't the game plan. We mugged them right from the start. And look, there's some unsung heroes on that team. You talked about passing, people like David Vischer, who's a very successful coach in Europe, for the last few decades. he doesn't get enough credit because he brought that extra sort of mentality and intensity to the program, including the passing aspect. He was a pass first guy. Most of our teammates were, but he was a pass first guy. So we had 3 seniors on that team, sort of co-captains or whatever, tri-captains were. David was older than I am, and he was a junior. So we had 4 seniors.
Yeah, he sat out a year.
Right. We had 4 seniors on that team, and it was important. Those are the intangibles that made it work. Right. We were somewhat combustible here and there throughout the year, but we had all these pieces that would glue back together, and make it work. Yeah. And that's what, and I mean, intangibles is a very sort of broad term, but it all came together. It really did.
And you get to grow over those 4 years individually, together as a team. Mike came in and was freshman rookie of the year in the Ivy League, so he was great right out of the blocks. I came in and I think coach would joke that if I might trip over the foul line or something like that, it was I had a lot of growing to do as a player, and strength, coordination, et cetera. And so that took several years. And then other players, got better over the time as well. So Darren Brady was always very good. He was our year as a senior, and then Todd Murray and Patrick Lynch were juniors. But we had several years of playing together during the season, during the off season. And it took that 4 years to gel. Yeah, right. I think Coach, we were probably your first recruiting class at Brown. And so that started off in 1981. And then it took to 1986 to, come to fruition.
Jim, you were the Ivy League Player of the Year that year, and Coach just said you were a different guy your senior year, like you were doing things that he had never seen you do. In your eyes, was it a gradual progression of improvement, or was it a matter of just confidence? Did something click over the summer heading into that senior year? What was it that just allowed you to be the player that you were in the 85-86 season?
I think it's, as it's the reverse of what do they say? The joke, you go bankrupt, slowly and then all gradually, then all at once. So this was the reverse of that, where I think I was gradually getting better, and then boom, it all happened at once. And it was maturity, right? Becoming 21 years old and just, coming in as this, skinny kid as a college freshman, putting on 20 pounds over the 4 years, Turkey Tetrazzini at the Ratty did its job. And then, weight training, and then all the coaching for 4 years. And then, so I can't, point to anything specific over that time, but by senior year, it all clicked. And, I think there was some times there at the start, like Coach Singheiser said, in some of those first practices, where he was like Turner, where the heck were you those prior 3 years? I was just like, I was working on my game, Coach. I was working on my game.
Listen, I got one anecdote to that. Okay, yes, it all came together, and Jimmy just blossomed, and thank you, Jimmy, because without you, man, it doesn't happen. We don't win. But one of the things that made that quantum leap in my mind, I mean, I saw it, and it was a process that started with David Vischer. We would go down to Marvel 3 times a week, pre-season at 7 a.m. and play for an hour and a half before classes, right? And it's a pain in the ass to get down to Marvel Gym at 7 a.m., okay? But we'd go down there, and there wasn't a big crowd. So a lot of times we played 2-on-2, full court. That's what we played, or 3-on-3. 2-on-2, but there was one rule. You could only take one dribble, okay? You could only take one dribble, and then you had to pass, even if it's 2-on-2 full court. So you learn to catch and move. Jimmy learned that day, or that through that period, that month or two. I remember he learned that he could catch the ball at half court, take one dribble, and dunk. Okay, that changed a lot. He learned that he could catch it on the move and take from half court, because he's athletic enough. He could take one dribble from half court on the move and dunk. And that changed a lot. That sort of element, we were like, oh crap, this is good. So that that's a little anecdote for the whole thing. I'm just,
which is also a segue into one of Coach's rules for me, which was if I dribbled the ball more than twice, if I got it, I was coming out sitting next to him on the bench.
So you learned that lesson pretty well, Jim, huh?
I did.
Jim, where are you living now? What are you doing now? And I know you had a couple daughters go to Brown. They graduated this past year.
Sure. So down in Spring Lake, New Jersey, on the Jersey Shore. After graduating Brown, I did B school at a lesser basketball school known as Duke University for the MBA, and then did finance in Manhattan for a good number of years until recently, coming down here and thankfully a little bit before the whole COVID situation, I was able to to take a step back from the finance and just focus on other activities down here. So, but yeah, my two oldest kids went to Stonehill, so up in the area, and then my twin girls went to Brown and ran on the cross country and track teams, which they thoroughly enjoyed. So it was very nice to have continuation of the kids going on and playing sports at Brown University also.
And Mike Wakus, can you take the listeners through what your life was like after graduating from Brown and what you're doing today?
Yeah, it's not so exciting. I've been in insurance, and it sounds bad, but I've had a great time working, professionally, as an insurance underwriter for well over 30 years now. And I would just advise anybody who's listening, it's not a bad career. It really isn't. And I traveled the world. I spent 7 or 8 years in Southeast Asia, based in Hong Kong. Traveled to, I was responsible for 10 different countries and got to travel all the time and understand how things work on the other side of the planet. Got two kids. They're both smart. I had 1A. I always tell my kids I had 1A in 4 years at Brown. I had 1, and I was proud of that A. My older daughter went to NYU. She got an A- and cried. That was her only A-. She cried.
Wow.
She cried. I said, honey, there's no crying. There's no crying in this sort of baseball thing. I got 1A and I was so proud of it. Right. And the younger one is at Northwestern. She's a junior, doing fabulous. So again, straight A's. So the kids, the kids are smart, and that's good, and they're successful. So happy. In Chicago, I went back to New York for 10 years, from 2000 to 2010, and back in Chicago where my wife's family is. It's great. Everything's great.
Coach Singheiser, you shared a story with me off the air, and I want you to share it with our listeners on the air. After you get out of college coaching, you coach some high school, and then when you decided you had enough of basketball, you said you picked up something that turned out to be arguably the favorite job you ever had. What was that?
That's correct. To back it up a little bit, when I was at Brown, I had a couple of incidents of thrombophlebitis, blood clots. And I was told by the doctors, you can't pound anymore, no more basketball, no more tennis. So I started playing golf. And I am definitely one of those people who is obsessive compulsive, and I played all the time. So fast forward to, I guess it's I was down in South Carolina, and I retired from teaching after Christmas break in 1997. And I started to caddy at a local, very highly reputed, nationally ranked golf course. And I loved it. I was out on a golf course, put 2 bags on my shoulders, walk at the end of it. I didn't make a bogey the whole day out there, the whole time out there. And at the end, the guys gave me money, and which was really interesting for me because I started my life as a teacher, and then I was at Brown, and I was teaching again, so forth. I never had money. Everything was always direct deposited. I didn't know what a dollar bill looked like once the ATMs came. But these guys were giving me real money. And I think I caddied that from 98 through about 2006. And I probably did 2,000 rounds of golf and just absolutely loved it.
Wow.
And again, it walking a magnificent golf course and having that be your drudge for the day, that's not bad.
And Coach Mike Martin, let me just confirm, your three guests on your show tonight have all been selected by the Ivy League as legends of Ivy League basketball. And the only other one I think that Brown has is Earl Hunt, if I'm not mistaken. So that's a pretty impressive group that you've assembled for your show tonight.
Russ, we're thrilled that Coach Singheiser and Jim and Mike have joined us, and they're all legends in more ways than one. But that '86 Ivy League championship ring, when you win, there's a saying: "To the victor goes the spoils." And when you win an Ivy League championship, you get that kind of recognition. And Coach Singheiser, one of only 3 Brown basketball players to ever be first team All Ivy 3 years in a row. Coach, obviously Jim Turner, Player of the Year, Mike Wakis, Rookie of the Year, All Ivy, all-time assist leader at Brown. They are more than deserving of the legend status in the Ivy League, and we're working hard to become the second. They're the ones right now, and we're working hard to become the second. And we're so fortunate that they're engaged. They're so supportive of our program, and we hope we can join them soon.
Oh, Coach, great way to wrap up the segment. Coach Singheiser, thanks so much for joining us. Jim, Mike, thank you as well. It was great to catch up with you and talk a little Brown basketball tonight.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Definitely great to be here.
Thanks, guys. That was awesome.
All right,
Thank you.
Mike Singheiser, Jim Turner, Mike Wakis, our guests, wrapping up the Mike Martin Show here on AM 790 WPRV.
This has been a presentation of Learfield IMG College.